No, no. I mean, the meeting has not started.
Actually, you're being recorded.
Okay, okay. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so this side we have Willa, Eric, Alfayo, and Alan. Alan joined us yesterday.
Hello, Alan.
Hi. Yeah, so
Alan, you wanna move closer?
hi, my name is
I
Alan.
don't know why.
Hey, Alan. Who's your favorite developer so far?
That is a really hard question to answer because I've interacted with most all of them and I like them all.
Very
No,
good.
no, he doesn't remember the names.
Well, my name's Willa.
Okay.
I'm actually Burke. I'm just trying to make life difficult for you.
I don't know. I don't know why.
So Buck is on the IU side. I guess you're alone, Buck.
I'm all alone. Everybody's left me.
All right, all right.
Including Willa.
I know. I think it's because Nina Nuka.
Okay, so I will start the meeting. So we didn't have any to-dos last week, so I'll just go ahead and demo the app. So Buck, you can stop me and ask questions. I'll just demo it as a user.
I got an initial question. What's the first goal? Like, what's the most urgent achievable?
Just repeat that back.
What is the most important kind of short-term goal? Like, if in the next, what's the thing that it must be done first in terms of making this useful to users?
Yeah, I think I might be able to answer that. So I think if I understood you correctly, what you mean is what objectives do we have as far as the app is concerned? So what do you want is for the users in the clinics to fill the form and interact with the app, fill the form, view the patient summaries, especially HIV summaries.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm less concerned about the list of potential features or what the wish list of features are, what you guys think should work or not. I'm thinking, what's the least amount, what's the minimal deliverable unit? What's the least amount that would make this, JJ could start utilizing it in the clinic? Is it already in use, or what's preventing it from being used tomorrow or today?
All right. Yeah, so the most important thing is, actually, it's precisely what I was saying. So being able to fill the forms without any glitches. So right now we have the app uploaded, and we've asked the forms team to kind of go through the forms, try to fill the forms in, and I think we'll get the data entry clerks, and to kind of figure out, try to see whether we still have issues to fix before we can actually start being able to see the history of the HIV summary, although that is kind of a use case for JJ right now. But the most important thing, actually, if you think about it, is just to have the forms right and doing the right thing. Then we can actually deploy and have the app being used.
So if choosing between reviewing data or entering a form, it's entering a form.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think JJ is a better idea, but entering the form has the high priority compared to viewing data.
Okay, and is there a particular form that is the first one you want to get working?
We have worked on 3 forms that were needed to be in there. So one of them was the adult follow-up, and then there is the pediatric follow-up and the postnatal. So far, I think we are almost good to go, but there are some 1, 2, 3 issues that maybe at the end of this particular demo would want you to help us clarify so that we can move forward smoothly.
All right, I'm just kind of trying to test the waters in terms of, is it clear to you guys? I think you're busting out some cool functionality that, is it clear what the most important or highest priority feature-wise was? It sounds like it's getting forms entered, and and you have 3 or 4 forms that you're targeting as your initial the first forms that need to get done. And is that it? Like, if we get those forms working, is it ready to be deployed tomorrow?
Yeah, if we get that ready to be working, it should be deployed, even tomorrow. The other thing also that I think from the clinical perspective was also important is what Willa mentioned, just having some summary of numbers, like maybe the vitals, the patient history. Those ones are already there. I think as it is right now, you should be able to run successfully, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So as it is right now, if we clear the forms, then the app can be used immediately. Yeah.
Okay, and is it so it can?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, hello, we lost you.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, is it already installed in production?
Right now, it's just on the test server. It has not been uploaded on the production server. It's just on the test server.
That it can run alongside production. It's something that would need to be done, but that is hopefully the assumption is that the test server is close enough that deploying it alongside the production server should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it should be able to work, because right now we are deploying it on the test server which might not have exact 100% of what is on production, but I think 90% of what is on production, and it's running fine. JJ had a similar app on the production, and it was just working fine. So we don't think we might run into any major problems when we deploy it on the production.
Okay, good.
Okay. Hello?
Hello.
All right, so Huntington just joined us. But do you know Huntington?
I don't think so.
He's also new.
You guys are just like expanding. You have like 15 new people?
Yeah.
I'm Huntington Wadi. I'll be working with Bonnie.
Yes. So.
Okay, well, welcome, Huntington. So, who have I met so far?
Sorry?
Who was the new developer? I've already forgotten a name.
Oh, Alan.
Alan. I know he remembers that I'm Willa. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Alan and Huntington. All right. Well, welcome. And is Huntington a developer as well, or is he working? He said, did he say he's working with Bonnie?
Yeah, he's working with Bonnie. Yeah.
Okay. So is it, Huntington? Are you like a project manager, or what role are you joining the team in?
I'll be assisting Bonnie in the project management.
Okay. All right. And do you have like technical background? Have you done any programming, or is your background in more in kind of project management?
My background is IT.
Okay. So like system administration kind of stuff?
Yes, and I am conversant with also development. So
Okay.
I'm doing that.
So maybe you can teach these programmers a thing or two?
They'll teach me. If they teach me, I'll catch up with them.
Okay, good. All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so back, I'll just go ahead with the demo.
No, but
Yeah, I noticed it looks like maybe it was Willa got the cores solved on the test server.
Yeah.
what? Say that again.
In the past, I was not able to log on to the test server, and now I can. I assume that's because you got Tomcat to work with cores.
No. That is it works because it is deployed on the same server, so the core has no effect. It's coming from the same server. That's why it works.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I hit it before. I thought I tried to run the test server before, and I got it didn't let me. But, okay.
That's because we are using C. There are two servers on that server. Okay, there are two application servers on that physical server. One is Apache, the other one is Tomcat. The one that you couldn't do is the one that is running Apache. So for that, it will be coming from a different source. That's why you are getting all those issues. But this one is running in Tomcat. I didn't want to have this kind of setup where the app is running in the same application server as the OpenMRS. That's why I was trying to do that. But otherwise, for now, I think you can do it having both apps on the same instance of the application server.
Okay. Does that mean that we haven't solved the course thing, or that we just haven't gone back to test it again?
I just didn't test. You actually, according to you, said it works. I haven't tested it myself, but the reason is just I deployed on the Tomcat server is because right now it's a test server, so it's not really an issue to have it running there. And if we actually need to kind of move it to some other server, then yeah, probably we'll need to think of implementing calls on Tomcat.
Okay. And will that be different on production? I mean, is that something that needs to get solved before we'll be able to run in production?
Yeah, if we deploy, of course, if we deploy the app in production, in the top and running in production, then I think it should be fine. It will be the same setup. So we put it there, it should work fine. If we put it in some other server, then that's when we'll have to start dealing with calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead. You can go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Okay, so I'll just log in. So I'll start by searching a patient, then we can go over the patient dashboard and also for entry. Okay. So just typing the name triggers the search, and then you get a list. The results are paged. This is client-side paging, and then I can go.
I notice when I click on patient search, it doesn't put the cursor in the field.
Oh yeah.
So you had to when you were at the home page. So go back to the home page.
Okay.
And now you want a patient search. Tap on that.
Okay.
Now, why can't you start typing, or can you?
Yeah. You can't start typing. Okay,
So,
there's usually a property for that, and it's autofocus. I tried using that, I didn't succeed.
Yeah. So that I think, it shouldn't take 2 clicks to search for a patient.
To have the cursor there, so I kind of.
Those things seem small, but they add up when someone is doing this for a living, and they have to do it, 100 times a day.
Okay.
Now you've saved them. You can save them, 100 clicks.
Okay. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Is somebody taking notes?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Alan's making sure that Will is taking notes, right?
Yeah. Okay, so when you type more than 3 characters, then it triggers the search, and then you get the search results. So we have some paging features at the bottom. Yeah. So
If someone has 2-letter name, they're out of luck.
who is that?
If you have 2 letters.
Yeah.
Oh, if you have 2-letter name.
If you're from China, then and your name is 2 letters, then you can't be searched.
Okay.
So that's a low priority, but ideally there should be at least a ticket out there to, it's okay to not start the search immediately until they type 3 characters, but if you type a couple characters in general when you're searching for something, if you either wait long enough or if you hit enter or hit the search icon, you should be able to force a search with fewer characters.
Okay.
But I thought it is implemented the same way in OpenMRS. Is it?
It's the auto search requires a few characters, and we may have the same problem where if you type a couple characters, it will just sit there. But ideally, if you know the that's a small. We can skip past that. That's more important for other search fields than for a patient name search field, because the use case of only putting in 2 letters for a patient name search is non-existent. So.
Yeah. Besides, I don't know anyone in the database that has
But it's true for other searches that.
Yeah.
So okay. So probably adding enter functionality. Or,
Yeah, and I would assume that hitting enter and clicking on that, the magnifying glass would be the same operation.
okay. All right.
Because the magnifying glass is right now it's not in action. It's just a non-clickable icon.
Yeah, it's non-clickable.
Yeah. So I would assume that would be, if I tap that it would execute the search.
Okay. So yeah, we've noted that. So I'll go ahead and select a patient. So clicking anywhere in the row selects the patient. Then it takes you to this view. And this is the patient dashboard. So in the patient info tab, you'll see demographics, and also there's an HIV summary that shows the last HIV related.
When you hit the back arrow, I notice you go back to it looks like an empty search. Is it possible that could take you back to where you were?
It should.
Yeah, it does.
When you click back,
Back to take it to the previous page.
No, he's talking about the search
with
results,
the
right?
text already there and the search results.
Yeah.
Just
No, it won't do that.
Mark,
Yeah.
even the current MRS, if you click back, it goes to the search, the first search, not the previous list.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that we should do everything exactly like AMRS. I'm thinking from what an end user would appreciate. These are small nitpicky things, but they're the kind of things that the attention to detail that I would not prioritizing. I'm not suggesting that any of these things would like adding focus to the field or supporting a back button in certain places should slow down getting things to production. These are just little refinements that if we at least make note of them, users would appreciate. In general, people, when they're in a browser, being able to use a back button and to take one step back in the workflow is nice. Maybe it's not, maybe that's just not easy to implement, in which case, so be it. It's fine. At least you go back to the search screen. But I'm just asking if there's a way that when someone clicks on a choice, that you could put something into the history that would allow you to, into the browser history, so that when they hit the back button, you could kind of bring them back to where they were. That would be a nice touch.
Yeah, but that's very interesting. But anyway, like you said, it's
Yeah.
not priority because people the way the clinicians use the app, or at least the way data entry clerks use the app, is they use the ID to search for the patient. And whenever they want to do anything with the patient, they will just go and want to search for that specific ID. So yeah, it's a good thing to have to go back to.
Yeah, it's just I'm thinking of the case where you go to tap on one of the patients and you hit the wrong one.
Yeah, right.
And now you have to start over.
Yeah.
So okay, so go ahead and start over.
okay. Okay, so yeah.
Now,
Okay, go ahead.
when I'm kind of following along this is the most painful demo you've ever given. I'm kind of following along on my own browser, and I clicked on that same choice, and for the HIV summary, I get an error occurred while loading. Please try again. But yet yours shows it.
Okay, so an explanation to that is that in tests we are using a self-signed certificate, because the HIV summary data is coming from ETL server. It's an old server running it, and it requires some certification. Yeah, so for tests, JJ want to use the AMPATH certificate, and so that's why you're not able to access it unless you launch your browser without web security.
So okay, so I get a okay. So at least in the console, I can see that it's making a call and saying insecure response.
Yeah.
Okay, ETL REST service. Okay. Oh, interesting. So, but okay, I'm just saying from the standpoint of someone trying to debug this, how they would understand that was what was happening.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little obscure, but okay. So right now you're loading it. You're either running in insecure mode or you're installing a self-signed certificate.
Yeah, I'm running in secure mode now.
Okay. So I think that would be one of those items you would want to list in the process of getting ready for production, is you need to ensure like that running in insecure mode as things get tested out, that's not, you know, we need to make sure that obviously that things will work. This is the kind of thing that could easily bite you, that you roll it out in production, it looks great, everything seems to be working, and then users complain because parts aren't working because they don't have a certain certificate or something like that.
Okay. So I guess we'll try to...
Yeah, so I can't... I'll just kind of follow along on what you're doing the best I can. So, all right. So, so I see the last appointment date, when they return to clinic, the viral load, CD4 count, and ARV regimen is blank. So I don't know, is that because there's no data, or is that because something's broken with the system?
That's because there's no data.
So is there some way of informing people that you know that there is no current ARV regimen, or something other than just omitting the information?
Okay. So
so some kind of something that would say no data, or it's something as simple as that. And it could be a lighter, a gray font or something.
Okay.
I also suggest that in terms of styling, that maybe for the dates you show, when you're showing values like the viral load and the CD4 count, the value and the date, making the parenthetical, the date, a little bit lighter, like a gray, would let people focus on the viral load and then look to the date if they wanted it. Like not have to visually fight between like where is the viral load 500 or is it 2015. That's just a styling thing. And are these data are all just kind of, those are included in the in the patient dashboard. So like every patient that anybody looks up with NGAMRS, it will it present an HIV summary with these values, or is it doing something to know that this is an HIV patient?
Okay, not all patients will have this HIV summary. I mean the values will be missing for some patients, so they will show up blank.
But the HIV summary section will be there. It's just maybe the values will be blank.
Yeah. The title will be there, but this list, we'll just have the blue HIV summary strip, and that's it. It won't show these other details.
Okay. Yeah, and again, to think of like what do you display when there's no information, I think is, it's helpful for the user to give them some indicator, something there other than just having part of the screen not show up, because the like the current ARV regimen, it's hard for me to know is that the fact that there is no ARV data versus the system for some reason is ran into some error and just failed to render that part. And so showing like if all these data are empty, having something that says no data or something like that, a little placeholder like that, it could be an italic or something that would be clear to me that it's it's coming from the system, would be helpful. That way I know it's working. It's just there's no data for that value or for that section.
All right.
Okay. So go ahead.
All right. So I'm just going to fill in a form. So I'll go directly to the Forms tab. And the form, okay, currently we have these 3 forms. And so if you want to fill one of them, you select, and it takes you to the form, the view that captures the data about the form.
Okay. So sorry, I have a million little bits of feedback, and all these, again, I'm just doing a brain dump as we walk through. So please don't interpret like me telling you this is what we need to work on next. This is just notes. We could make tickets for them or just have notes of things that would be nice improvements. If there's something that I saw that I thought was like, oh, there's no way that'll work, I would point it out more critically. But for example, on this screen, I notice there's a lot in the header. I see as much or more labels than I do information. So when people are filling out forms and working with these things, it's really helpful to make it clear which patient they're working on, so that they don't make the mistake of filling out a form and then realizing halfway through, oh, that I'm doing it for the wrong patient. The current display in the header has the name is very buried. Most systems I've seen would have in that header would have the patient's name and potentially their gender and date of birth would be especially the name would be bold and fairly clear, and then followed by the identifier or identifiers, whatever you're going to show. So just thinking about, we probably should do a little bit better job with the header on these pages, showing which patient is there. I don't think we need to show that the thing that follows is their name. I mean, I think we could say we could show the name as in a bold and maybe larger font, followed by an identifier without having and maybe male, female, or age and date of birth, that kind of information would be helpful. So I would I think I would summarize that we could do a better job with the header on these pages, the identifying which patient.
Okay.
You did. It's nicer than showing the actual JSON, but we can do a little bit better than that.
Okay.
All right. So go ahead.
I'm just going to fill in the required fields for now. We're displaying one question per row. I mean, one question per line. That's
Do we have a mechanism for putting in defaults?
Default values?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So, do we know? My assumption is that most of this will be for point of care, not retrospective entry. Meaning that it'll be people entering these as they're seeing the patient and not necessarily entering them for someone who was seen a week ago. And if that's the case, then it might be nice to default today's date. And if the person filling out this form is a provider, it might be nice to default their provider record, and so they could. If I'm making an assumption of how this will be used, that this will be point of care, that it will be providers in the field filling in these things, and if we can, if they're always having to first select today's date and then select their name in the first two questions, then that we're making them do work that shouldn't be necessary. If my assumption's wrong and this is going to be used by other people, like a data entry clerk, after the fact or something, then that those defaults may not be appropriate.
Yeah, this is supposed to be used by a provider, so yeah, we include in properties for having default values, especially for the provider and the visit date.
Yeah, you may have a beautiful application and make it all wonderful, but if as an end user, if every time I fill out a form I have to name today's date and say my name to the system, I will think it's a stupid system. Like I logged in. How come it doesn't know what today's date is and who I am? Why do I have to tell it that every time I fill out a form?
Yeah, so yeah, I think to me that is a priority on some of the items you've mentioned there. The only thing that maybe location. Oh, we could have a provision for having a default value for location that can go into the form, but
yeah, a common use case for things like location, and there's other fields that will behave similarly. It's sometimes it's good enough to just default in what was last entered for that field. So it depends on the workflow, who's filling it in, and how it's typically used. But something like a facility name, if the 80 or 90% or more use case is that these are providers in the field working within a clinic for an afternoon, then having them select the same facility name over and over and over is not good design compared to defaulting it. But if they work in the same facility and never leave it, then and they're always working at the same one, then ideally it would be defaulted every time. If it's common that providers may use this system and may work at satellite clinic A and then go to satellite clinic B in the afternoon, then you ideally want some way that you don't have them blindly entering the wrong facility name every time. And so defaults are great when they save people time, but you have to be just careful that if you don't match the proper workflow, you can actually lead to encouraging people to make data entry errors. So it's a balance between convenience for the user and making sure we get decent data.
Yeah. So, what is the best way to implement this one?
So I would say, assume you could validate with JJ on how this is the intent of this being used. But if it's people expected that these are providers in the field entering these in real time, then definitely visit date and provider could be defaulted. The facility name, you could check and see what the expected. JJ was probably the best one to know how he expects these to be used, and will people be moving around, or will they tend to be in the same spot? If they're, my assumption, and this again, this is just me guessing, would be that it's probably, if someone's filling these forms, they're probably going to be in a clinic, and they're going to see patient after patient after patient in the same facility. But we can't necessarily guarantee that the same person, or this, if they're doing this on their phone, you can't just depend on the device. If they're doing it on a desktop machine or on a tablet that is not theirs but stays in the clinic, then you could have something associated with that browser, a cookie or something that would always set the facility name. In which case, it would be it would follow the browser or the device. And that would work well. If the device follows the person, meaning a provider is going to use it in a satellite, like in TESO in the morning, and then go to a different clinic in the afternoon with the same tablet or the same device, then the trick is, well, is it, maybe you just think about, well, how can I most reliably provide the default for convenience but not put it in there when it's the wrong thing? There's a couple ways to do that. One is to say, well, we don't know, we're going to have to make them fill it in every time. The other, and you can say, well, at least maybe I could show them a choice list of their most recent selections to make that easier. Another option or approach would say, well, if they're going to work in one location for a morning, for several hours, and then move to another location, or work in one location for a day and the next day be at a different facility, then in that case you might say, well, maybe the most effective thing would be to have them choose a value and save it in a cookie, so that it can be defaulted in, but cookie expire after, if it hasn't been used for half an hour or for an hour or something, so that way you're, while they're in a clinic and working, that value tends to be supplied for them. But if they come in the next day, or if they travel somewhere else, then they have to, the first time they see someone, they have to pick it. So how it gets implemented, you could use cookie, you could use local storage, you could try to do something server side associated with the person, to decide what the default value should be there. What you choose and how you implement it would depend on what we know about what a proper default for that is, and that really depends on how the application is going to be used. So for facility name, I would start by just checking with JJ and try to understand how people will be using these forms. Is the assumption that they are going to be in one location filling in multiple forms for patients for a clinic? That I think is pretty safe assumption. Then the next question is, do we think that it's going to be more often than not that most providers have one clinic they work in, and even though they might not be there every day, when they're using this form, they're probably going to always be using it for the same clinic location. Then you might be able to use set a default that's going to be more persistent. So anyway, I've taken too much time on just that field, so I'll stop talking.
Okay. So we've noted those points. follow up with JJ. So can I just go ahead and fill the form and then submit it? Okay, so I'll just do the required fields for now. Um,
One tiny comment. I noticed that, and I don't know, maybe this is just a layout thing, but it was a little slower to load the form from my end, and the loading form, the spinner and that message is up above the header. Ideally, in my eyes, immediately the first place I focus is in the body of the form, like within the tab. And so one comment would be just move that spinner, the message that we're loading the form, display that in where the form will be, not up at the top above the header.
okay.
Can we put it between the patient details and the tabs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. For me, it just looked a little bizarre because I opened it up and I saw a blank form with like a save button and nothing in it, and then it took me a second to notice that there, up above the header was a spinner working. So you could put it in between. You could center it and maybe take the body, the whole section under the header and have it grayed out, with the spinner centered while it's loading. Those are all style choices. I think right now, just the feedback I would give is that showing it up at the top of the form is not where my eyes were. So, all right, go ahead.
So for provider, also a search field. I mean, so yeah, we'll try and default this one. Then I'm going to fill in the facility name. For now, we're also doing it's also searching.
With the
Okay. Okay.
That's guaranteed with any demo.
Yeah, at least it requires that there has to be an observation. I guess that is why it has thrown that message that there is no data to be submitted. So at least let him put in a single observation, then try to submit that.
It needs to type the option.
Yeah, it needs.
What was that message?
Is there any option in the date field, in your date widget? Is there any way to tell it not to allow future dates?
Yeah, that is within the configuration. As you configure the form, you need to put in a validator. And
I'm just wondering, is it possible for in that example of saying I don't want to have future dates, rather than waiting until they enter something to tell them that they did the wrong thing? If it's possible that widget, the kind of the built-in widget for date selection, if that has a parameter that says no future dates, that would disable any future dates, that's even better. Like right now, I can put in a future date, and it's only after I enter it that the validator. It's good to have the validator there to make sure they don't enter invalid information like by hand or something. But it would be ideal that you wouldn't be able to select the future date in the first place. If the widget doesn't support that, then so be it. They just have to live with it. But In general, you shouldn't offer for people to do things that are not valid.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe that will require some extra investigation if the widget we are using right now can kind of, if we have that case where you've said no future dates, to gray out the future dates.
Yeah, I wouldn't go like hacking the widget or anything like that. But if it turned out you look at that widget that comes with Angular or something, or with your your UI and the library, and they say, oh well, if you set this parameter, it won't allow any future dates to be set. Finding a way to recognize that requirement for a date field and setting it would be the same thing could be said for not allowing for past dates. Those are common scenarios, and that's why it's at least worth looking to see if that widget supports it. It also looks like manual entry of the date is not very well supported.
Yeah, that is true. The widget kind of, if you look at the logs, you'll notice it complains anytime you try entering the dates manually.
Yeah, there's no way. That's just a downside of that widget, or is there any way to intervene and basically insert something to say, okay, well, if they manually enter.
Right. Now, considering that the app is mainly used with tabs, I don't think people will be so keen in dates in that period. I mean, I think it's relatively easier to just pick the date from the widget than.
Yeah, it depends on the field. I think ideally on like the visit date field, it should default to today, as we were talking about. And for some fields where where it's defaults to today, that's true. If you're setting someone's birth date, or if you're doing using a tool to search back and you want to search 6 months ago, the date widget is suboptimal.
Yeah. In that case, then you might want to put those widget that lets you go back easily. Like you have a drop down of years of the widget, or drop down of months, something like that. Instead of using the arrows that go back.
Yeah. But like for someone to say be able to type 3/7 and tab, now they wouldn't use it for the visit date, but for another field where they wanted to say, filter things to since July 3rd, being able to do 3/7 and enter, and it assumes that's July 3rd.
The thing about dates, when you start to support that, you'll find that you have to start considering a lot of options, because see, in the US when you say 0203, it means the 3rd of February, but here in Kenya it's the 2nd of March.
No, that should be based on your locale, but that's a minor thing. It's just in other fields it would be nice if that level of support was possible. Anyway, it's a minor thing. People can easily use the widget for now.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with your concern, but I still think supporting that is a lot of work than the advantage it provides. So I think just using the widget is more appropriate, especially in this case.
Yeah, I think especially because you can invoke the widget by hitting a down arrow, then at least I can, on the bright side, it looks like it has fairly decent keyboard support. That's really the key thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so so for forms, that's it. Once you submit the form, you can go to the Encounters tab, and it
Now your system looks more like mine.
No, for that patient, there's a problem with this patient test test annex.
Ah, this Alex, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of
So what
doesn't load it
do you
and
do
counts
with
it.
that for this one?
I just don't know what is going to happen.
Patient views.
Just type test, I'll show you.
Okay.
You can use the number 3 on
Yeah, so practice, there's this weird thing going on with this guy. Annex,
Um,
some things don't happen with this patient. We haven't figured out why it happens that way, but yeah, so for example, we can't load encounters for that patient, and there are other things, I guess.
okay. One more question about a form.
Yes.
When I'm here, like I'm like in the form entry for that annex patient. I don't see a way to cancel a form.
There is a way to do that. Think when you go
Click on submit to cancel. I see. I found it under submit. So I have to click on a word submit to cancel the form. That's not a good thing.
Okay.
So I would my suggestion would be, if there's going to be it would make sense to have a final like sign, or a final stage in many cases to kind of review what you've done and submit it. If they were going to have to like enter their password or do something like that at the end, that would make sense. If that's not the case, without that use case, it seems like it would make more sense to have the save and cancel would be at the bottom, outside of the tabbed region below it, and would only become, cancel you could hit at any point, and it would, if you've entered anything, it would confirm before it left the form. Save would be disabled until you had at least filled in required fields.
Yeah. Yeah, ideally the way it has been structured, it won't be able to submit until you have provided all the required fields. And in case you have not provided all the required fields, kind of give that error, some error.
Well, ideally, they shouldn't be able to get to that. I mean, you can do that if you don't have a mechanism yet to disable the save button. But ideally, you shouldn't give them a save button, an enabled save button if the form is not ready to save. But yes.
Yeah, it can be. It had that particular feature, but I thought of it could be annoying to a user whereby the field is just disabled and doesn't know what is happening.
Yeah. So in that case, both with a hover as well as if they click on it, you can give them feedback to tell them exactly why it's disabled. If you want to if you're concerned that they won't understand why they can't click on it.
Yeah, so what I did is, instead of disabling it, when you click save and you have not filled all the required fields, it'll just give you a message that the following required fields have not been completed.
Okay. Yeah. So if you know that the form has not been completed and then you're able to do that as the form's being done, I would suggest you could have that same behavior, but I would show the save button differently. Show it, make it look like a disabled button until you can still, if they click on it, you can show the message, hey, you can't do this because you have to fill these in. But it's a little misleading to give them a button that says, here, I'm clickable, and then yell at them for clicking it.
I cannot disagree with you.
Yeah.
So the thing is,
Click, see what happens.
the use case you are describing is very valid, and for some users maybe that is the case, and it's okay to kind of being able to know whether you can actually save the form or not. But I mean, depending on the user, sometimes I'm filling the web forms and I'm like the button is this. I'm not sure if it is disabled or not, but it's shown in a way that it seems like it's disabled, and I'm like, what's going on here? I don't know what's going on, and maybe I just don't know if I can click it. So I don't even try to click it. I don't know what's going on, and maybe I'm just annoyed. I just close the page. And it depends on. I think it depends on the circumstance and who is using the app. So having the button as active, I think is better than having it either disabled or shown as disabled. Because I mean, if somebody clicks save, then they can always get the message that okay, you have to fill this, and this. It's easier and it's more, it's interactive, and I think it is welcoming to the user. Oh, I didn't do that. I just go back and do that. But I see the button is disabled, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And maybe I don't even think of clicking it. So I don't think. I think this is the best way to have it.
All right. I think it requires a click to find that out, but
Yeah, but even if you make it as disabled but not disabled, you still need to click it. So you're not eliminating anything.
you know, I think when you have it disabled and I'm filling out the form, as soon as I've filled out all the required fields and it becomes enabled, it's told me something.
Yeah, I understand that, but this I think it's kind of it's not a 100% like okay, it should be this way.
Yeah.
There are
That's
having it either way, so it's just a matter of choosing which way you should have it and
Yeah.
which way users would prefer.
but getting the save and cancel, especially the cancel somewhere where I could see it, and not having to hit submit to cancel the form would be a big improvement.
Yeah, I agree with that. That one I agree. And I think the reason we have a tab there is because Eric can help me, but it's because these things are within the form schema itself. That's why even the idea of putting them outside the form is not very easy thing to do.
Oh, the save button is actually part of the form?
Yeah, is it right?
Yeah, it's part of that.
It is. That's why it is.
So someone can make a form that is not savable?
No, not really, but the service that is building up, because once you've put up the schema, the service that is picking up that particular form will include that. It automatically includes that, so it's includable within the service that is building the form.
Okay, so you can say where you want it on the form or something?
Yeah, but we preferred it to have it at the last tab there. I might look into the options that you have.
It seems very odd to say that the form is responsible for having something like, you know, like, does it have to say whether it has a cancel button? I mean, it just seems very odd to have. I understand the history on InfoPath because we had to define the form from scratch. It was basically like a Word document. But for something like this where you're defining a form and you want to provide, you know, consistent, you know, actions for it, it seems very odd to have that as part of the form definition.
It's not within the form definition, but it's within the service that builds the form.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if it's building the UI of the form, that still seems odd to me that you would you know, have
that maybe outside the tabs, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that would be like having the form renderer, you know, controlling the header. It's like, well, that's none of its business. The same way that you know, if you're doing a form, you can say how you want your form to be, but when it comes to either someone canceling or submitting the form, that's part of the NGAMRS. That's part of its job, not the specific form.
Okay, so I'll try to pull it off and put it outside that particular form.
I mean, I think in general, just forms having the assumption when someone's defining a form that there's a you know, a way for someone to cancel the form and a way for someone to submit the form wouldn't be. I mean, having that assume that that's outside the form, that probably is relatively safe design-wise, rather than having to find every form to have a save page at the end.
I think that the reason, don't you think the reason to have that is because you can have multiple forms on the same page? So you don't want to be using the same save and cancel button. I mean, the form is like a self-contained unit with the save and cancel. And that's why you have it this way, so that if you just have two forms on the page, you don't want to be worrying about, okay, now I have to kind of code the submit and then the cancel for each form. You know.
Oh,
so
you mean I could go to fill out a form and then have a tab that has two different forms on it, and they have two separate save and cancel buttons?
No, I'm saying I'm just saying the reason that you might want to have the save button, submit and save on the form, is because you can have such a scenario. Maybe in this case it's not the case. So yeah, well, actually, looking at this form, I thought about that even when we were doing this development. It's just that there are other things that have high priority we're dealing with. But as far as I'm concerned, I actually don't like the idea of having a submit tab just for the task of putting the save and those two buttons, save and cancel. So yeah, I agree with that completely. So we
Okay.
actually work on that. Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to run. Are there any other? I know there's much more to see, and I was being very picky along the way. Um, but are there any other like specific questions you guys need?
Yeah,
or want to ask?
there was one question about how to render two different questions that are sharing the same concept. So I kind of having problems, especially when I wanna if I want to fill existing data on that particular form. How do I distinguish these two questions that are sharing the same concept ID?
Yeah, I think in general, asking the same question. So I guess what you're suggesting is maybe that you might ask the same question in two different parts of the form, and it's the context in which it's asked where that matters. And in general, having a form that asks the same question twice, other than a repeating question where they can make multiple answers. Asking, is the patient pregnant, and then later on asking, is the patient pregnant, would be would either you would disallow that, or what InfoPath does is it binds it to the same piece of data in the model. So if you answer they're pregnant, when you get down to the second question, it's already answered. And if you change it, it changes in both places. That's less because it's the same question, and more that it's tied to the same part, the same entry in the model. I mean, technically, the reason that it behaves that way is because they're bound to the same part of the model. What's the use case where you have the same concept, the same question asked more than once on a form? Hello? Hey, I lost you. Hello? Hello? Hello?
You know why you need to block it? To save you a lot of things. Like, for example, you're submitting a form,
Yeah.
so the request has already left.
Yeah.
And then you've not blocked.
Like
So
Hey,
the-
I lost you.
Yeah, we lost power back.
Yeah. So I have to run, but my quick question to Eric was, what is the use case? What's the specific use case where you need to have the same question twice on the same form?
Yeah, I've seen a case where, for example, on the form they're asking, there's a question about have you missed or have you missed any of your drugs within the last month? And then that question is also still being used to identify which drugs did you miss.
Yeah, so that's an improperly designed form.
Yeah.
So have you missed any drugs versus have you missed this drug would be different. The latter would be, I think, would need to be OBS grouped with the particular drug. So it may be the same question asked multiple times on the form, but they'd be within the different OBS groups.
Yeah. So that was my thinking. But when I talked to Bonnie, he says that is how it has been used, and we might want to leave it like that. I've just pasted the link. There's a paid link that I've shared with you. You can look at the things I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right. So 115. So during the last month, has missed any medications, and that's 1156, and then you're saying drugs missed, and that the latter one, is that in an OBS group or no? It doesn't look like it is.
It's not in an OBS group. That is what makes it slightly weird. It's not within an OBS group.
So yeah, that form is not, that's designed improperly, because missed last month. Oh wait, no, it's